card. The dress card's right now. I was going to come around. Did you have Happy birthday. Would you like to come on in?
I was like, lady.
Did we get you?
You got me.
This is why, hey Mel, this is why your mom always said wear clean underwear. You never know.
Anyway, listen. Good idea. I forgot about you here. What do you call it, hard medicine?
Y'all come on
People
around
in You want a nitroglycerin? Mayo, you want a nitroglycerin? Okay, then we can go back on this way. All right, I'm over this way.
Payback, huh? Payback.
I can see it coming.
No. I thought you might.
Yeah, you got it.
You stop a second. I'm going back.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You got the ice in this roll, so I put the ice in there.
Good idea. Thank you. We'll go ahead and get started, and I hope the people in the back room can hear me. Mr. Woot just told me he didn't think y'all would be able to hear me, but I told him he hadn't heard me talk yet, so we'll see how this goes. Well, I think we really got Mayo, and that's what we're here tonight for. But I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'd also like to thank all those involved in making this possible. Without the work of all the people who have helped me get this together, it would not have been possible. I want to thank Rita Parsons. I don't want to be in this thing by myself either, y'all. I'm being polite, but I'm also saving my butt too, okay? Because we hope that I still have a job, but Mayo has told me that Carrie told him it was too public for him to fire me here, so thank y'all for coming, okay? Rita Parsons, Mercedes Gravatt, Dee's Gravatt, Sarah Gravatt, and Daphne Norfleet for her camera work. She's got a video running. We're going to tape this whole thing tonight so that Mayo would have it. Then he can look at it again and again and again and again. Okay? All right. On July the 4th, 1946, in Connellsville, Pennsylvania, Mayo King Gravatt was born. To the proud parents of William Lincoln Gravatt Jr. and Mercedes Mayo Gravatt. Mayo would be their second-born child and would make them very proud and try their patience more than once. Mayo, as a child, had many talents. He tried his hand at the age of 4 at car painting. He and his brother Bill used shoe polish to completely paint a car a gentleman had parked near their home. The whole car, every window also. They totally covered the car. Mayo was so proud of his accomplishment that he would add yet another accomplishment to it by graffiti. He wrote his name on the car backwards, O-Y-A-M. He was so proud. Well, you can imagine their mother's astonishment when this gentleman knocks at her door to inform her of Mayo's newly found talent. Mercedes tried to help the gentleman remove the shoe polish from the car, but it only got worse. The man had to drive with his car door open so he could see where to go to the nearest service station to try to get the polish off of the car. Probably that's when one of those pictures were taken. You can see Mayo has smudge on his shirt. Either that or he just changed the oil in the car, I'm not sure. But maybe that picture's related to this story. Another talent Mayo possessed at a very young age was wood carving. Mayo and his friend Jimmy Crawley decided that they would be able to make a canoe from the bark of a tree. This tree was in Jimmy's yard, so they worked very hard to remove every inch of bark from the tree and were very proud of what they had done until Jimmy's father came home. He scolded them and said, "How can you have done this? The tree is going to die." Apparently, not wanting this on their minds, they decided to remedy the situation they had gotten themselves into. When Mr. Crawley returned home, he found that Mayo and Jimmy had nailed every piece of bark back to that tree.
Pager went in.
We're all here.
Good job, Mayo.
Mayo entered grade school in 1952 at Blackstone Primary School. He did well in school, and at the age of 13 would continue his education at Episcopal High School in Alexandria, Virginia. He graduated high school at the age of 17. He would then go to college at the University of North Carolina, from which he received an athletic scholarship. In September of 1968, Mayo joined the Army. He went to jump school and then to Vietnam with the Americal Division in 1969. He was wounded and medevaced to Japan. From there, he was sent to the Republic of South Korea and would stay there for 18 months. When he returned to the States, he went to Fort Polk, Louisiana as a drill sergeant. We have a photo of Mayo probably in those days. The drill sergeant. Yeah. Big round glasses.
Scared me. One of my regrets in life. I shot at you.
During his military career, Mayo received many awards, some of which are Combat Infantryman's Badge, Purple Heart, Good Conduct Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, and a Parachutist Badge. After his military service, he finished his degree and obtained a law degree from Washington and Lee in 1975, at which time he would join his father's law practice. Mayo had a beautiful young lady by the name of Sarah Sutton enter his life and turned his head. They were later married on May 30th, 1970. But quite possibly the greatest test of Mayo's patience and one of his greatest educations would begin on September the 10th, 1973. This was when Carter Randolph Gravatt would come into this world. How could Mayo have known that his firstborn son would be famous in a rock and roll band?
Supposed to be bashing him.
On April the 6th, 1979, John Wally Gravatt was born. John would prove to be another education for Mayo as he soon learned that all children were different. On June 6, 1981, Sarah Elizabeth Gravatt, or Sally as we all know her, jumped into the Gravatt household as the third child. Mayo's education on Sally has only just begun as her teenage years continue and she grows into a beautiful young woman. And as you're all aware, Mayo became Commonwealth's attorney for Nottoway County in March of 1986, and I think everyone here will agree that he's done a wonderful job with that. And now that we've got a little bit of Mayo background, I think we can begin our roast, which, by the way, Mayo, that's what this is. We've got several different individuals who've expressed a desire to come forward and say a few words just for this occasion. So I'm going to call on you as we go along. Rita Parsons, I'm calling you to come and say a few words, and then we'll go on with our speakers.
Attributes that come to mind are gentle, caring, generous, intelligent, kind. But then enough about Sarah, but we're here to roast Mayo.
Okay, next we have Dr. Steve Spence.
I'll remind you of medical competence.
Now, my remarks are handwritten, so if I screw it up, that's because I can't read my own writing. When I was first approached to make mean comments about Mayo, I jumped at the opportunity, and that was really before I realized that the poor guy was turning to. But then I began to get even more suspicious, and I said, gosh, why would they ask a doctor to speak to a bunch of lawyers? I figured that probably all of his lawyer friends didn't have enough liability insurance to brave standing up here. Public comments about Mayo. So, at any rate, then I got even more paranoid. I said, well, maybe she was sitting around and said, well, you know, Richard Cobbs has this liability and insurance policy, and we can nail them all three at the same time. But seriously, my friendship with Mayo goes back over 10 years, and that's the first time he threatened to sue me for inappropriate medical comments. And I knew we were destined to be lifelong friends. The first time I got his blood work back, and I found out that his BS level was almost as high as mine. But fortunately, neither one of us even approximated the level of Bob Horfel.
Speak up, I don't think they can hear you in the back.
And just look at the fine physical condition I've kept him in. He's a testimony to my medical care, and as a matter of fact, you know, his pulse rate hadn't gotten above 80 since his honeymoon. I did get it up to 79 by showing him copies of old medical bills in the office. From looking at the fine physical specimen and his conditioning, it's obvious that he doesn't follow my advice. But seriously, in my line of work, you come to realize that advancing age can strip you of many things, but the one thing it doesn't strip you of is your friendships and your friends and memories of those friendships. And 30 years from now, when I'm 50, and I hope it's that long, and I'm stroked out and lying in a nursing home bed, I'm going to always remember the day that Mayo came to me and asked me to go skydiving. And I'm sure at that point in time, incontinent though I may be, I will regret not having gone with you, Mayo. And in the meantime, I will keep asking you to ask me to do those things, and maybe one of these days my weenie title will be low enough for me to say yes to some of that stuff. And I also wanted to make a small confession at this point. When I take resident applicants around town to interview them and show them our practice, I always drive them out to the country clubs so we pass Mayo's house and point out the house. That's Mayo Gravatt's house. He's my friend. He's the Commonwealth's attorney. He's a lawyer even a doctor could like. And you would never ever see him on TV in a rocket ship. But thanks to you, Mayo, for letting me share this milestone in your life. And if you'll call the office and start scheduling weekly visits, I'll try to keep you going. I'll be there. And we can only both hope that Richard and Kelly don't have your health care insurance. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, next on our list is Joe Farrow. Joe Farrow's been a lifelong friend of Mayo's for some time, and I'm sure he's bound to have some good dirt.
Mayo, I may have to pull a few punches. We have such an august group here tonight, so you may get off a little bit easier than perhaps you thought you would. Mayo and his brother Bill were the first two friends that I had when I moved to Blackstone. I moved here in the summer of 1956, and I guess about 2 weeks later I met Mayo and Bill. And I would say that Mayo is probably, next to maybe a friend that I have in Amelia, that is the longest running continuous friendship that I have ever had. So we are beginning our 41st year, and after I get finished, it may have ended at 40 and several months. Mayo, I don't know, you probably are going to get skewered and barbecued pretty well tonight. So I didn't know whether to roast you or to damn you with faint praise. I have sort of witnessed the evolution from the Steve Urkel era to the top cop at EHS to Mystic Mayo at Carolina, which you have seemed to have returned to the drill sergeant, Gravatt, in the service, and then to Legal Beagle, and now to points beyond, perhaps J. Maynard Krebs. I wish I had some bongos and a beret. But since I've chosen not to roast you, it gives me some latitude, because we don't have to talk about that car that you didn't help me build. It'll be a lesson. If you're going to build a car and you're 10 or 11 years old, and you're doing it with Mayo Gravatt, you get your car built first. And we're not going to talk about learning the facts of life from Jimmy Campbell camping back down at the bottom but behind Gospel Hill. You and I both learned a lot that night. You might think the stork comes over and drops them. And we won't talk about your continuous criticism of my nervous stomach. We won't talk about when one of your relatives married the night after the wedding, and how cordial you were to the local magistrate, and why you missed the brunch the next morning. We won't talk about that. Sarah, you were down in Texas. Yeah. The morning after. These, of course, are unofficial, and I don't know whether these are entirely accurate. There was a report that Mayo was seen driving an airplane down the highway. This was denied. Mayo was an excellent athlete, and probably, to my mind, maybe the best natural athlete that I've ever been associated with, particularly in track and field. There was another unofficial report that he had developed a new event called putting the brick, and he was putting bricks at the window or in the windows of several of Chapel Hill's leading lending institutions. That was, when I asked him about that point blank, I didn't really get an answer, so I'm not sure about that. And then there was, of course, I was able to talk to several of his old fraternity brothers and friends.
If you're going to keep this up, I'd like to exclude my children.
Leave the room, but what you've done is I cut you no slack with Carter or John. But on a very serious note, Mayo has been a confidant, a groomsman at my wedding, a godfather to one of my sons, and most of all, he has been a very loyal friend to me. He's taken me away to the mountains when I needed to be taken away. He's given me someone to talk to about what went on in Southeastern Asia, and certainly an experience we both shared and were both profoundly affected. And so what I'm going to leave you, he gave me a book for Christmas back in 1989, and it's called Jaguars Rip My Flesh. Adventure is a risky business. And Bill Hay can probably attest to this. Mayo really is a closet adrenaline junkie. He doesn't like to admit it. But in this he wrote, he said, "To my good friend," in parentheses, only one, I'm sure that he can see tonight that's not the case. At Christmas of 1989, the fellow who wrote this, Tim Cahill, he says, Cahill, excuse me, did what we might have done had we not taken other paths from Mayo with love and affection. Mayo, I hope our paths will cross many times again in your next and my next 50 years. I love you, brother.
Thank you, Joe. All right, next we have Dee's. That's Mayo's sister. Younger sister. I am so sorry. Yes, much younger. Okay.
Some of you may know the Chicago 7. Well, this is the Frackville 7. Only the Frackville 7, the seventh one is not in the picture because, as usual, his modus operandi is to be behind the camera, so you can't see him. But 3 years ago, I started out from Boston with my 2 children to come visit in Virginia, and I was all excited. I had a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee. I started out and I started to get a migraine headache. Well, by the second day, I was paralyzed and I couldn't go any further. So I called up on my new cell phone and said, Mayo, I can't make it. So guess who drove 6 hours? 6 hours with Sarah and the 2 kids, with John and Sally, to pick us up in no less than Frackville, Pennsylvania. So, in Frackville. Now, if any of you run rivers, you know that a class 5 is the toughest one. So Frackville, we consider, well, 6 is, but 5 is really, pretty good. So this is a commemorative shirt from the kids and me to you. And we just wanted to say that it ain't bragging if you've done it.
Okay, thanks, Eudee's, the much younger sister. Okay, next on the list we have Bill Hay.
I get to
Is
leave.
this going to be clean enough? Can we do this? But no, you can't be excused for a long time.
12 minutes.
Can you all hear in the back? Can you hear? Bring your chairs in here if you want so you can see what's going on.
What a wonderful occasion. Mayo's friends gathered to celebrate the fact of his becoming 50. What a perfect demonstration of the old maxim, with friends like these, who needs enemies. But we are not here just to celebrate. We are also here to debate a critical question. Is Mayo Gravatt old? As you may not know, Mayo and I are exactly the same age. Therefore, I have some expertise in this field and can readily point out signs of senility and general loss of abilities that others might not notice. So when Rita asked me not to speak tonight, I readily accepted. After all, why speak and risk being accused, as I have in the past, of telling lies? Why not let the facts speak for themselves? So let me tell you a true story. At the end, draw your own conclusion as to whether Mayo Gravatt is old. 5 years ago, Mayo and I and Dennis and Corinne Martin from Gainesville, Georgia, went to Idaho to paddle whitewater rivers. Toward the end of the trip, we found ourselves at the Loxa River in north-central Idaho. This is a beautiful, clear, green river surrounded by a heavily forested wilderness. A road, the only road across Idaho in that part of the state, follows the river from east to west for over 50 miles. The Loxa contains many miles of Class 3 and 4 whitewater, 2 sections of which were of primary interest to us. The upper Loxa has long Class 4 rapids. The lower Loxa has shorter, more intense, but not more difficult rapids. One of these, not the most difficult, but the most visually attractive, is Loxa Falls. There, right by the road, the entire river plunges over a 7-foot sloping drop into a big wave. This is followed by a series of smaller waves and then a beautiful moving green pool. Like I said, it is visually dramatic. On our first day there, we ran the lower Loxa. As usual, Mayo took 3,789 pictures of an empty river, the surrounding mountains, various fuzzy objects, the rear of the car ahead, and all of his friends running the river. No one else took pictures, so his own day went undocumented. We all played hard, had a great time, and told lots of lies around the campfire that night. It was your typical day on the river. The next morning, all of us except Mayo got up early to greet another fine Idaho day. I think it was snowing. We built a morning fire, made breakfast, sat around and refined last night's lies, broke camp, hung Gary to dry in the blowing snow. There was no sign of Mayo, except for snores coming from his tent. He was obviously fatigued. Finally, as the group was getting restless, I went over to the tent. Mayo, I called. No answer. Mayo, come on, old buddy, time to get up. We want to get on the upper. I could have been a Viet Cong colonel. Hello, Gravatt saying. Time to rise and shine. Re-education class starts in 5 minutes. And it wouldn't have done any good. Gravatt was comatose. But I persisted, and finally there was some movement inside the tent. I went back to the campfire and my coffee. A few minutes later, Gravatt emerged from the tent. Come on, Mayo, someone said, it's a great day. We want to get on the upper Loxa. Gravatt looked around at the lovely conifer forest. He wiped a snowflake from his wrinkled brow. He looked at the blustery Idaho sky. He looked at the deep green water rushing by not 50 yards away, and he said, huh? Well, to make a short story long, Mayo decided not to paddle that day, pleading fatigue. Look, guys, I'll drive along the road and just take pictures. We all looked at each other in concern, but shrugged and accepted his plan. Almost accepted his plan. I made a counteroffer. Look, Mayo, since you don't want to paddle today, why don't you take pictures for the first half of the trip and then run into town and buy us some supplies? Due to his obvious fatigue, Gravatt's sense of caution was working poorly that morning, and he readily agreed to this plan. So we proceeded to don our paddling gear, rig our boats, run the shuttle, and do all that stuff in preparation for the upper Loxa. Just as we were ready to walk to the river with our boats, Mayo asked, Bill, what supplies do you need? I again looked at my friends, concerned at Mayo's obvious confusion. They shrugged, I shrugged, and I offered a blinding glimpse of the obvious. Beer, Mayo, we need beer. Oh, he got it. Well, where is town? Again perplexed, since there was only one road in this part of the state. And we hadn't passed any towns coming from the east, I pointed to the west. That way. I didn't think I needed to tell him town was 60 miles that way. Mayo turned to leave, but stopped and turned back. Bill, since I'm going to do you this favor, how about taking a picture of me running Loxa Falls when I get back? I need to prove to my family that I really came out here to paddle whitewater. Sure, Mayo, if that's what you want, I'd love to. So we paddled and played and had a great day. Mayo took pictures of the first half of the trip as promised, thus taking only 1,865 pictures, and then took off to the west in search of town and supplies. We went on with our trip. At the takeout, a couple of the guys, being from Idaho and thus being better supplied, left for camp to revitalize themselves. Dennis and Corinne Martin and I waited on the banks of the Loxa for Mayo. We waited and waited. Dusk approached before Mayo arrived. I couldn't find a town, he offered. I had to drive 60 miles. We ignored this sign of confusion and focused on our resupply mission. Meanwhile, a brain cell must have flickered to life. But Gravatt remembered that he had extracted a promise from us to photograph him running Loxa Falls. But light was fading, so he hurriedly got dressed, unloaded his boat, and walked to the edge of the Loxa beside the falls. We didn't pay much attention to all this activity until Gravatt came over and handed me his camera. That's right, he handed me his own camera. The fancy one with the automatic focus and motor drive. The AK-47 of cameras, capable of firing 50 shots a minute, one after the other. All I had to do was point, hold down the button, and shoot. History was in my hands. Then he handed Corinne Martin another of his cameras. Okay, you might see this as rational behavior. For so far, Mayo had handed out only his own cameras, equipped with his own film he could lose at a later date, as he in fact did. But Gravatt then asked Dennis Martin if he would get their camera out and take pictures too. Was this the thinking of a rational person? Thoroughly resupplied by now, we all cooperated, though the day was waning, the air was cooling, and the warmth of a campfire and further supplies beckoned. Dutifully, we allowed Mayo to situate us 10 yards apart along the banks of the river just below Loxo Falls. Dutifully, we allowed Gravatt to make sure our cameras were focused, had the correct shutter speed and aperture set, and had plenty of film. Dutifully, we waited while Mayo walked up the bank, slid his boat into the river, and got in. We waited while he paddled in a couple of circles to warm up, as if that would do the job. We pointed the cameras while he paddled up to the edge of Loxo Falls and peered at the line through this drop. You ready for the rest of this, man? We tensed our fingers on the shutter buttons as he circled one final time and approached mighty Loxo Falls and his moment in whitewater history. Yes, Mayo paddled right up to the falls and fell over. That's right, fell over, as if the cameras we wielded indeed fired real bullets. Gravatt flopped over like a wounded pigeon. At this point, I began utilizing the advanced features of Mayo's camera. Dennis and Corinne, also sensing an opportunity here, commenced snapping off shots too. Upside down, Gravatt drifted to the lip of Loxo Falls, over the drop. I clicked. Dennis clicked. Corinne clicked. At the bottom of the falls, I took a shot of the bottom of Mayo's boat. So did Dennis. So did Corinne. Mayo reached his paddle to the surface, waited for just the wrong moment, and began to roll his boat back over. Now, rolling an upset kayak is a basic and essential skill. It is necessary to prevent unnecessary swims and uproarious stories being told around campfires. Mayo started to roll his boat and failed. He was just too slow. One of the waves below the falls knocked him back over. I snapped a shot of 3, Dennis snapped a shot, Corinne snapped a shot. Mayo's head popped to the surface. I snapped a shot. Mayo's body followed. I snapped another shot. Mayo began swimming frantically toward shore. His paddle firmly gripped in one hand and his boat in the other. We snapped more pictures. Dennis, also of advancing age, briefly forgot his role as recorder of this moment in history. He put his camera down and turned toward the car and a throw rope, located only 100 yards away. Forget it, I shouted, reminding Dennis of his duties and of the fact that only a cool green pool lay below Loxo Falls. Take pictures. Dennis did, I did, Corinne did. Well, you can imagine the rest. Mayo struggled to shore some 50 yards downstream. We happily galloped down the bank to offer encouragement and support as he emptied his boat and dragged it up to the road. Then we proceeded back to camp where we commiserated with the other 2 guys at their misfortune in missing this spectacle. Enough said, end of story. But before I close, let me ask a couple of questions. Then you make your own decision as to whether this event depicts the action of a confused, disoriented, unwary, weak, perhaps even senile, certainly an old person. Did Mayo Gravatt decide not to paddle the Loxo on the day in question, pleading fatigue? Did he then agree to go to town to get supplies, forgetting what supplies are and how far town might be away in the wilderness of Idaho? In his defense on this point, I will offer that Gravatt himself stopped his own aggressive resupply campaign some years ago. And since he comes from Blackstone, he may have confused the word town with city. Did Mayo beg his own friends to photograph his descent of Loxo Falls? And did he give them his own cameras, and worse, let them use one of their own for this mission? Did Mayo forget that his friends might use cameras to nefarious ends? Did he get confused and think we would take pity on an old man in his plight? Did he assume we would keep silent and hide his condition from the world? Obviously, his confusion and forgetfulness in this regard bordered on the delusional. Did Mayo show any signs of physical weakness, even fatigue, at the lip of Loxo Falls? Didn't he flop over like a deflated balloon? Did he show any signs of slow reactions at the base of Loxo Falls? When knowing we had cameras, he struggled but failed to right his boat. Ask him what excuse he offered later for this failure. The water was too soft. And finally, I ask you, didn't Mayo Gravatt employ Rita Flippin as his faithful and loyal secretary? Isn't she the very person who organized this affair? Who invited me not to speak?
Okay, end of that, Bill.
Who basically set the question before us, is Mayo Gravatt old? That last fact alone might suggest a high degree of confusion and loss of faculties. But I think you will all agree that the Loxo Falls story cements our knowledge that Mayo Gravatt, great friend and guy that he is thoroughly senile and is in fact old. I rest my case.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Okay, next we have Clarence Simpson. Where's Clarence?
No payment, sit back down.
Yeah.
I thought I paid enough to keep you in jail. James, you ain't all carry that dog with me? You had a retirement party yet? Yeah. I forgot my notes.
I'm sorry.
No.
I don't have them.
I've been knowing Mayo for quite a few years. Joe said he met him in 1956. That's the year I started working on the police department. Like so. And the saying was then, don't go near Gospel Hill till you get tackled. And I thought they was having football games over there, so I rode over there one afternoon and I found out what they was talking about. Bill and Mayo behind the pine tree were tackling everybody come down the street. He's come a long ways. It's unusual to see a man accomplish as much as Mayo did to get started like he did. You usually can't get them changed around, but he did change. Dr. Spence was talking about him setting up meetings for to keep him in shape. Well, he's been staying in shape for a long time. We used to go to the beef festivals at Mayo, and Mayo was steady jogging from Budweiser to Miller. From Budweiser to Miller. So that's the reason he's like he is now, and I like the way you changed your face too. He did have the name of a street lawyer. A street lawyer is a new lawyer that comes into town, that comes out the office door and motion for you to come in and see if he can represent you. We was in court one day, and our good friend, chief of police at Burkeville, asked me, said, who is that guy over there? And I said, he's a street lawyer. That's Mayo Gravatt, he's a street lawyer. He said, if he comes to Burkeville, he won't be no street lawyer. But, Mayo, you really have done real well. I think it would be appropriate if everybody had a little silent prayer for you.
Thank you, Clarence. Next we have Sandra Furman, who's one of our magistrates here.
You didn't have to add that, Rita.
Oh, everybody knows that. I'm just trying to be official.
Mayo apparently advertises that to the Richmond attorneys too, wherever you gentlemen are. Mayo, after all these long speeches, I don't know any of these tales to tell. You went out of town for high school and college, besides which you're so much older than I am that I didn't know you anyway, so I just have a small gift to present, but I don't want you to get the wrong idea. There's one word in the citation that you may not get. It just comes with the age of 50. And you are the recipient of the I just have the pleasure of presenting to Mayo Gravatt the American Association of, and we're going to really retire, he cannot do that, and the executive director added in a little here. Did you translate the Chinese, Mayor?
I think I recognize that artwork.
Well, it came straight from the national office, and you have a unique, one and only membership number. Would you read that, please?
I can't see that.
He sure signed of old age. Dr. Smith, please check his vision next time he comes. It says his membership number is too old for tonight. Mayo, welcome to the American Association of Retired Persons.
Hey, Mayo?
What?
It was signed by the director and my dad. But you gotta sign that before you can use it.
I'll just keep it back here.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Next on the list, we have Les Osborne. We're going to go down with some of Mayo's work that he works with and see what kind of tales they can tell.
Thank you, Rita. I appreciate it. Somebody said earlier that Mayo has been Commonwealth attorney since 86 or whatever. Kelly and I were riding over here tonight, and we had to stop at the service station a minute. And somebody said, "Leslie, where are y'all going?" I said, "Oh, we're going for a function to honor our Commonwealth attorney." They said, "Oh, really? I hadn't seen Curtis around in a while." There are very few politicians like Mayo Gravatt. He's almost a stealth politician. You don't know where he's going to be or what he's going to be doing. After he became Commonwealth attorney, I was still doing court appointment work, and that's when you represent folks that, well, they were so smart they wouldn't have got caught anyway. But anyway, I was talking to this guy, and you know, the police officers, these fine folks around here, when they get some of these folks, they just want to talk to them and get them to tell how they shot somebody and cut somebody and did all that and be nice to them and all this. And it's hard to get the client to tell you, well, what did you tell the police? Oh, I didn't tell them anything. What did you tell them? I didn't tell them anything. At first I say, what did you tell them? Well, I told them he shot him, but I didn't shoot him but twice. They said I shot him 3 times. So I was talking to this young fellow, and he said, I was talking to this fellow, this police officer trying to act real nice to me. I said, yes. Did he read you your rights? He said, yeah, I think he did or whatever. I said, well, who are you talking to? And finally he got out of him, he talked to one of the Blackstone police officers. He said, and there was another guy there with him. I said, another guy there with him. Who was the other guy that was there with him? Did he have a uniform on? He said, no. I said, didn't have any uniform on. Who was it? Well, I don't know who it was. And the guy and I decided, I said, well, wait a minute. Was it a guy taller than I am like this and kind of thin with brown hair? And I said, well, it might have been him. I said, well, that was the prosecutor. He said, no, couldn't have been the prosecutor. Couldn't have been. I said, so I went on and asked him a couple more questions. Said, no, it couldn't be the prosecutor. I said, why couldn't it have been the prosecutor? He said, well, he had a shorts on and a t-shirt and a pair of sandals. I said, no. I said, oh, that's bound to have been the Commonwealth attorney, Mayo Gravatt. He said, no, this guy kept telling me, don't worry, I'm here to help you. When Rita asked me to come here tonight, she had a couple of faxes, and there were some other folks that we talked to. We've got a lot of friends in the law and all this, and a lot of folks that I ran into that weren't able to make it down tonight. One of them was Judge Kerr. I saw him today in Farmville. He said he wasn't going to be able to come down here, and he said for me to think up something bad to say about Mayo and attribute it to him. So if I say anything wrong, Judge Kerr said. But at any rate, and Tony Jackson, some others from Farmville could not be here, and there's some folks that have sent some faxes, and Rita asked me to read it, and some of Mayo's good friends. The first fax is from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. Best wishes to a lifelong good Democrat. Time seems to be catching up with me too. I feel your pain. Your recent letter regarding my claiming to be on active duty as Commander-in-Chief to delay the Paula Jones trial was received with interest. I did not realize that you were familiar with my mother's pedigree. Your comrade in arms, Bill. Another fax came in from down in Petersburg. Can't be present for your roast tonight. As a former legislator, I'm requesting a 9-month continuance based on legislative privilege. Your friend, Hardaway Marks. P.S. I'm still breathing and you're not judging. I came down here, started practicing in 1978, and as a young lawyer coming down here, it's hard, just to kind of get started, you know what's going on. And one of the first cases I had, Mayo was co-counsel with me on. He had one fellow and I represent the other one. And George Cummins was prosecuting. Of course, George had a big reputation and all this, and tried to work something out. George looked down at me and patted me on the head and offered me this guy to go to prison for 5 years and said, young lawyer. I said, no, I can't. He said, young lawyers should take these pleas. I didn't know what to do, so I went to talk to Mayo. At any rate, Mayo and I did a little research and we came up with something. I guess I kind of have to tell you what the case was about, but we represented a couple of guys that went out one night and they were having a little drink. They actually had a lot to drink. They went down to a fellow's house and went down to his tenant, the guy's tenant house next door, and they were drunk. And they got to shooting a rifle, and they shot a rifle, and they killed a man's hog. And not, of course, you kill a hog, you wouldn't want to let the hog lay there. That'd be terrible. So they picked the hog up. They accidentally killed the hog, of course. So they took the hog and they dragged it and put it in the back of the pickup truck. And they rode up the road, like they were going to go to the man's house that owned it, and tell him that they killed his hog. They went to the door, so they said, and they came back out, they couldn't find him, they came back out the road, and the hog fell out of the truck. Well, now, they were so drunk that they couldn't get the hog back in the truck. So somebody came down the road and said, well, here, let me help you get the hog back in the truck. And they laughed and played, got the truck, drove off the road. Later on up the road, they ran into a small telephone pole, got arrested for drunk driving. The hog was missing. You know the rest of the story. They got arrested. So, at any rate, there is something in the law called the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. In Virginia, it makes a difference as to what something is worth and sold. But it's worse if it's a felony, which is a worse crime, if you steal something that's live than something that's dead. So we found these two cases that said there's a difference between stealing pig and pork, and this was our big offense, and we were arguing it and all this. And we made George elect us to which way we were going, and we were smiling and laughing with each other, going on down through the case. And we got up and argued, no, George elected wrong, it was pork, it wasn't pig. We were talking about the police officer, whether the pig scuffed his feet when they were pulling him along, whether he was alive or dead, and all this. And we made all this wonderful argument about how the pig and the pork and all this. At the end of the case, Judge Warren looked down and said, well, I'm going to find these two fellows not guilty. I believe they were so drunk they didn't know what they were doing. But I remember Mayo when he defended people, and he was a different person then. I want you to know that. But there's another side of Mayo that most people don't remember, and a lot of people don't remember it. He sat as a substitute judge. And he didn't sit a lot as a substitute judge, but he was a wonderful judge, really a wonderful judge. I do a lot of domestic work now in custody cases and things, and I remember I had a fellow whose wife was not really, his wife at the time, not really wonderful woman. He was trying to get the custody of his little girl away from her, and I was representing. And we put on 2 or 3 hours worth of evidence, and it was a close case, and Mayo appeared to me to kind of be leaning in my direction and was going to give the man custody. And he said, I want to get a home study done, I want to look at this, and I think you put on a good case, and we'll see how things go, and y'all go on with the visitation. And I told my client, I said, look like we're doing all right, be all right, just take it easy, and all this. And my man was just shaking like this. Well, before we could get back to court about 2 months later, my client kidnapped the child and went to Washington, D.C. and evaded the FBI and the D.C. police for about a month. Well, they finally caught him and charged him with felony abduction and everything else and brought him back down here. And aside from that, we had to come back before Mayo to review to see who was going to get custody of the child. And they put on the evidence on the other side, and Mayo looked up there and he sat like this, and he looked and he looked and he looked like this. And he said, you know, I really thought you should have custody of your daughter, and I really thought you should have custody of this child. But you know, kidnapping her and hiding her from the FBI for a month has got to be viewed dimly in this case. And the guy said, I understand. There's not many of the judges that can get somebody to say something like that. But after that, as y'all know, Mayo got elected Commonwealth Attorney, and I've kidded him for years or whatever that he was a character from Star Wars and he was seduced by the dark side. And now Mayo works as Commonwealth Attorney on the other side of it. He gave up all those folks he defended all over the years. Now he's trying to put them all in jail and things. And the change in him is unbelievable. But on a more serious note, I quit doing that kind of work a few years ago and wrote a letter to the judges. I was going to get off the court-appointed list. And what I put in the letter was that of all the things I've done in practicing law and all the people I've dealt with, I would miss most by not handling those criminal cases, not being able to argue with Mayo Gravatt. I mean it sincerely, Mayo. I really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you, Les. Okay, next we have Bob Hawthorne.
Remember the story about you being my father?
That's an excellent idea. That's an excellent idea indeed. For me to tell that story. Because if any of y'all ever end up standing nearby when Mayo is talking to me, you're going to hear the story. Mayo can't allow books to be near us without telling a story to the books. He loves a story, and he never tells it right. But one time, you're going to have to hear it told right.
Oh.
I am in my office one day, dressed, I had my tie that I had before I came over here tonight, talking to this lady who wanted to be a client, and we talked. She had some serious problems she wanted to talk about, and she was a little uptight with the problems. They were family related. And we chatted a good while, and finally she was ready to go. And so we walked out of my conference room into my waiting area, and there sits this fella in not just short jeans, but cut off short jeans with the rough cut still on them, a t-shirt, sweaty t-shirt as I remember, and sandals, sans socks. And so he looked like he had already passed 50. And so I was trying to lighten this lady's mind a little bit, milk of human kindness working again, Mayo, as you would understand. So I said, lady, guess what this guy does? And of course she was embarrassed. She looked at him, and you could tell she figured there's nothing this guy was capable of doing that she wouldn't be embarrassed to suggest. But she said, I don't know what he does. And I said, well, come on, take a guess. Guess who he is. And she hemmed and hawed, and she couldn't come up with anything. And finally, she got so embarrassed, she said, is he your son? It is not that funny, Smith.
You ever seen Bob shut his mouth? He did.
That did take me aback. And if y'all are wondering why, y'all just look at Mayo and think how old that woman had to think I was. That was my son. Since then, he has called me Dad, not once. How many times pictures a day? What was the figure?
3,800.
Not that many times, but a multiple of 10 that many times.
I thought he knew better.
Well, you have mistaken about Mayo again. Mayo is a slow learner. Mayo has been a friend of mine, and I will start on somewhat of a serious note. Some years ago, when my children were not grown and I did not have a son practicing law, I was having a semi-serious conversation with my wife one night about the prospect that something might happen to me somewhat long. She's stuck with these 3 kids and not being a wealthy person. I don't know what should she do. And I told her, well, I said, one of the first things, I think you ought to go talk to Mayo Gravatt, because I think Mayo is a good attorney. and I would trust him to look out for you. And that was about as high a compliment as I could pay a fellow member of the bar. And I had held that opinion of Mayo for a right long time, and consider him, as some of these other people have said, a very, very good friend. Mayo and I think we've had some serious conversations a time or two and some not so serious. I was surprised tonight, though, to hear, as I sit in the back, and I couldn't hear much, but I think it started out that Mayo was born in Connellsville,
That's right.
Pennsylvania. My father-in-law was born in Connellsville, Pennsylvania, but we called him a Yankee.
He has never forgiven me.
Well,
Giving birth and
I've got bad news for you, because after the night, he will never forget that he was born in Connellsville. But, and that starts, because the transplanted Yankee, they're not all bad. I married one. Her father born in Connellsville, Pennsylvania. But he went to the University of North Carolina. Now that's south of here. Got it wrong twice. But he did go to law school in Washington, D.C. One thing y'all probably don't know about Mayo, one of the reasons that he was interested in becoming a Commonwealth attorney, Mayo hates lawyer jokes. And that's a characteristic I share with him. I hate lawyer jokes. I've never heard a funny lawyer joke. Mayo's problem was he was doomed to have to live some of them. Don't tell him how many times people would stop when he was around and say, you know, it's so cold outside. This week I saw Mayo with his hands in his own pocket. First 5 times you hear that, it's cute, but it's not. The time that he was fishing, taking pictures, as he is wont to do, of the shark-infested waters, and he fell overboard. He was so excited about taking them, and everybody knew they were going to write him off because the sharks were going to eat him up. The largest shark swam by, hit Mayo, and bumped him back into the boat. Mayo gets all excited and says, that's a miracle, that's a miracle. I thought it was going to eat me up. And the boat captain says, no miracle, that's just professional appearances. Wasn't funny then, not funny now. As I was trying to think what to say at such an august occasion, I wanted to say something about Mayo. I worried myself to sleep one evening. And it obviously was on my mind because, as we've heard before, I had a dream. I dreamed that I had gone to the hereafter, had passed away out of this life. And when I got to the gates of the hereafter, I was met by St. Peter. And the first thing he did was he explained to me that we had some misconceptions on earth about the hereafter. One of those being that your status, it wasn't a case of making the cut and having paradise, or not making the cut and going the other way, that your circumstances in paradise reflected somewhat the type of person you were when you were here on earth. And also, contrary to what the public at large says, they not only had a lawyer in the hereafter, they had a bunch of them. In fact, they had a section, the whole apartment building filled with lawyers. And so he was showing me to where my accommodations were going to be. And the first person that I saw there was Jack Boswell, who had obviously gone ahead before me. And there was Jack in a modest apartment. And as St. Peter had told me, you know, the sexual difference that they tell you in the Bible is not followed into the hereafter. Well, it is. And that was Jack's companion there. And it was absolutely the ugliest woman I had ever seen, or that I never saw in my life on earth. And I said, St. Peter, I don't understand. That's one ugly woman or whatever Jack was. Then St. Peter said, well, Jack was good, but he wasn't that good. And I said, okay, all right, I understand that. And so I walk along, and then the next person I recognize is George Cummings, who I understand is a lawyer here in Nottoway. And I was interested to see how George had fared. And to be honest, the companion that George had was the only one, I think, in creation or beyond creation that could make the one Jack had look half decent. I mean, that was a really unattractive person. And I said, St. Peter, I said, well, frankly, Bob, George was good, but he wasn't that good. And I said, okay. And I walked a little further to where I'm going to end up, and I see Mayo. And Mayo is there in his unit with Dolly Parton. And I stopped. I mean, even in a dream, I said, see, that's Dolly Parton. And he said, you're right. And I said, but that's Mayo Gravatt. And he said, you're right. Dolly was good, but she won't take it. Speaking of pictures, as y'all can probably tell by now, most of the good thoughts that come out of my household, my wife comes up with. And I was talking to her and I said, we need to get some kind of token to give Mayo at this 50-year-old party. I don't want a gag gift or anything, but I want to give him something that has some meaning to it. And she came up with this. And I'm going to pass that down. And Mayo, you be opening that, because that is a symbol to us. We all know of the prolific picture taking. It's not going to explode. It's a serious gift. I'm going to say something serious, believe it or not. Mayo takes a lot of pictures on these trips, but he also shares those pictures with the people that he goes on those trips on. Mayo also does that in the community. I have, as part of my memory treasure chest, a lot of pictures of my children taken by Mayo Gravatt when they were playing ball in school or at school activities. And everybody else that has kids that are playing ball or taking part in activities when Mayo's around, they usually end up sometimes coming down the pike. There's a bunch of pictures. Here's some I took that I thought you might be interested in seeing. And I think that symbolizes Mayo Gravatt does an awful lot for an awful lot of people. Those pictures and that film, so you can keep on doing that. Don't waste it taking pictures of Billy Hay in the water. But
These could be your grandchildren.
good idea. And I wanted you to know that we appreciate that, and all of us here appreciate having had the opportunity to spend some time with you and to celebrate this with you. And to answer his question, you are old.
Thank you, Bob. Now, that's all the list of speakers that I have. Is there anybody who wants a chance? Because you better speak now, or as they say, forever hold your peace. Okay, we still have food out. You can, welcome to get second helpings, but I guess we're going to have to give Mayo about 3 minutes rebuttal time to answer some of these claims, maybe, or to say something to everyone. I think that's what's normally done. So, Mayo, if you'll come up, and then, we still have food out. If you want to go back for a second helping, please go, and then we're going to bring out dessert. And we also have a cake. And we put the fire department on along, but just don't pay attention if they see smoke out here. So, we'll be okay with that. So, Mayo, you want to say anything?
A speechless lawyer, how about that? I was certainly speechless when I came in the room. It was a perfect surprise. I've never been that surprised in my life. And, I appreciate y'all all being here. It means a lot to me, all of us in our profession, including those sharks from Richmond who are circling around back there in the back row. Know that this line of work gets to you and wears you down after a while, like a lot of professions, but this one in particular, because it deals with so much heartbreak and misery and everything else. So between the 30-day vacation I just took, which was wonderful with my family, and all of y'all coming out here tonight, which is a real treat, and one I'll remember for a long time. It'll keep me going, maybe 2 weeks before I get back to my usual self again and get me. But it's a heartfelt thanks to all of you that put it together and all of you that came. So thank you. And there was only one line about
Anybody want to second helpings, please go ahead and go and get it, and then Evelyn's going to bring out pie. We have pie for dessert. And when do you want to?
We have to sing happy birthday.
Yeah, we have to sing happy birthday. All right, well, we're going to light the candles on the cake as you're going. We'll sing happy birthday.
We just have a separate cake just one minute.
have enough time after y'all.
Evelyn, do you have some matches?
That's not enough.
Carter, you can have to look.
We just run up the line.
Rita. Rita, move the flowers. Can't see the plane. Dolly! Oh, he's in the way. Look at. Hey, Rita, move them so I can make sure that they're moved back so I can get him blowing them out.
To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mayo. Oh, happy birthday to you.
All true.
And I'm not giving him this tape because we're going to give him time. I'm keeping him my glasses.
Basic instructions for Oh, we have one C motor on here.
Let everybody see the car.
Get the rescue of these guys. He must Sid, much as you should have thought he was on the band, I said, you're not. You're not. You weren't even It's not going anywhere. Don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. Nothing goes yeah, she was with us whenever.
Happy birthday to you.
If you didn't make it, y'all had it on film.
14 shots.
Wipe this down.
Which is the leaded?
The brown top.
Okay.
The brown top.
Oh, he's gonna.
Is this the right one?
That's the right one.
How you doing, Bill? It's good to see you. Yeah, man, salmon was great. I hadn't been boating since last November, so the first day kind of knocked me around a little bit. Until I got back in the groove, though, I had a great time.
She'll break
Bill, I want
See, you already sound like that. Get stuff like that. He went home. Yeah. I thought it was going to go. Jack, wrong door. Jack, Jack, do you believe it? Yes, I believe it. Oh, don't
You need any more pies? No.
Going every
Joe was worried what I was doing.
Maybe John's
Real good. Y'all have a good time. Did y'all have your feet over here?
Oh, yeah. I just supported from the raft.
Two chocolates, okay. This is Pepsi here.
We got to rotate
The what? Yeah, works better when you're over with. It's 2 somewhere.
Debbie Buck. I don't know, I think we always could have a propensity to have it for the
All right. Oh, I see Very good. Made today. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Been a while.
Yes, glad you do. I didn't get to see you at all. Oh, well.
You did good for what you had to work with.
If he finds out,
years back, I didn't say it. Somebody behind the truck.
And you must be, or I said, Emily, and we have parties sometimes, birthday parties, we'll have pictures, whatever that was. Sally. Come back. That's why we want you back. 65, Paul did it. He's got his asset equipment before he used up, and he doesn't own the building. My understanding is, it doesn't hold. We're not bound. I worked on my 30. I worked on my 30. That's fine. When did you get it? Okay.
That's true. That's true.
That wouldn't work. No, let's not. Wow. You think
Who pushed him through that door at Mach? Feels like, wait a minute, the car comes up behind him. There you go,
I'm sure you Let's see, what's No, but I'm getting them. You did a great job
Well, be careful.
I'll buy you down that and up to the Ruby house every
Taking his word out of context. You won't need
Did a good job. Take them all. I think I'm gonna Listen, you got to get it.
The trash is really over there.
The roasted belly. Well, let me start.
We deal with good crop.
That's a little miracle, bro. Does that work? Ain't but one way to find out.
Yeah, no, everybody's cold at home.
Yeah, I'm officially.
I got a scrape on your tongue. You need it. Yeah.
I was a doctor. The gate wrong one away.
We didn't know about it.
Yeah, I'm not paid. Tell them they work.
See how it's paid off for this last fire?
That's the real. His old age said and you know the blues
That's conversation.
We've been filming them growing.
So we're just not left from talking. Go ahead. Education, you heard that story. That's like it. Education, actual education for a living.
Right back to
it's not on. It's not recording. It's on. Unless Billy's just on.
No, I had it says REC.
It's not recording.
It says REC, the red light flash.
Did you get the last person?
At the bottom left-hand corner,
Well, then take it off.
and the time is steadily moving.
It's moving. Look, if you do like that, the thing will move.
You just go.
No, I
Well, then cut it off. I think we have to just edit it.
But I know
gotta sit in the back.
it's a little big to carry it around.
Top of my car.
Thank y'all for coming.
We can solve it.